There's a particular kind of weight that settles in a person's chest when they know they owe someone an apology, and the years keep passing without it being said. Sammy Davis Jr. carried a weight like that, quietly, for a long time. Early in his career, during the difficult, demanding years of constant touring, constant performing, constant pressure to prove himself in rooms that didn't always welcome him, Sammy had, more than once, lashed out at people close to him. Not out of cruelty, but out of exhaustion and fear, and the particular kind of strain that comes from carrying enormous expectations on very little sleep, night after night, city after city. One of those people was someone who had been with him from the very beginning, someone who had believed in him before almost anyone else did, who had driven him to shows in the middle of the night, who had stood quietly in the background while Sammy became one of the biggest stars in the world. This was someone who never asked for credit, never asked to be thanked publicly, just showed up again and again in the way that only the people who truly love us tend to do. During one especially hard stretch, too many shows, too little sleep, too much pressure from every direction, Sammy said something to this person, something sharp, something dismissive, the kind of comment that in the moment feels almost meaningless, just words spoken out of exhaustion, gone as soon as they're said. But words like that have a way of landing somewhere, even when we don't see where. Sammy regretted it almost as soon as it left his mouth. He could see it briefly in the other person's face, a flicker of hurt, quickly hidden, the way people who are used to being overlooked learn to hide these things. He didn't apologize that night, or the next week, or the next month. Life moved on the way it does. The tour continued. New cities, new shows, new pressures, new emergencies that always seemed to need attention first. And the moment for that apology, which had felt small at the time, easy to fix later, quietly closed, without either of them ever quite noticing exactly when. Years passed. Sammy's career grew even larger. He performed in front of presidents, in front of royalty, in front of audiences that numbered in the tens of thousands. And through all of it, that one small, unresolved moment sat quietly somewhere in the back of his mind. Not constantly, not painfully, but present. The way an old splinter sits under skin, mostly forgotten, until something brushes against it. Eventually, Sammy learned that this person had passed away. And the first thing he thought of, before the years of friendship, before everything they had been through together, was that conversation. The one he had never finished. The apology he had always meant to make eventually when things calmed down, when there was more time, when the moment felt right. The moment never came, and now it never would. Those close to Sammy in his later years said he spoke about this more than once. Not dramatically, not as some grand confession, but quietly, almost in passing. A small, unfinished thread in an otherwise extraordinary life, full of triumphs most people could only dream of. He once said something that stayed with the people who heard it. He said that he had spent so much of his career worrying about being good enough to be on stage, good enough to be taken seriously, good enough to belong in rooms that history had not built for someone like him. He had fought for every bit of respect he ever received, in places that did not make it easy. And in all that worrying about being good enough in front of strangers, in front of audiences who would forget him by morning, he had let something much smaller and much more important slip away. A simple apology to someone who had never needed him to be impressive, only kind. That was the realization, that the apologies we owe to the people closest to us are often the easiest ones to put off, precisely because those relationships feel so secure, so permanent, that we assume there will always be another chance, another visit, another holiday, another ordinary Tuesday when things will finally be calm enough to say what needs to be said. And sometimes there isn't. Another chance. Maybe you felt that too. Maybe there's something you said, or didn't say, to someone you love years ago that you've never quite resolved. A sharp word during a hard time, when you were under more pressure than anyone around you realized. A silence that lasted too long after an argument, until the argument itself became almost beside the point, and the silence became its own thing. A moment where you knew you were wrong, but pride or busyness, or simply the slow passage of time, got in the way of saying so. And maybe, like Sammy, you've told yourself you'll deal with it eventually, when things settle down, when the timing feels right, when you're not so tired or so busy or so caught up in everything else that seems, in the moment, more urgent. Here's something gentle to consider. An apology doesn't need perfect timing. It doesn't need the right mood, the right setting, or the right words rehearsed in advance until they sound just so. It just needs to be said, even imperfectly, even late, even years after it should have been. Most people, when they receive a genuine apology, even one that's overdue by years, don't think about how long it took. They think about the fact that it finally came, that someone cared enough after all this time to say it, that they were remembered and thought about, and that the silence wasn't the whole story after all. Maybe it's time to think of that person, the one whose name came to mind while you were listening to this. Maybe it's time to call them, not to relive the old hurt in detail, not to over-explain, but simply to say, "I've thought about this for a long time, and I want you to know I'm sorry." You might be surprised by how quickly the weight lifts for both of you. Often the other person has been carrying something too, quietly, all this time. An apology can release more than just your own burden. And if that person is no longer here, maybe it's enough to say it anyway, out loud, to yourself, or to someone who knew them too. Sometimes the words themselves matter, even if the person they were meant for can't hear them directly. Saying them out loud in your own voice can still loosen the weight you've been carrying for so long. You might visit a place that reminds you of them. You might write the words down, even if there's no one to send them to. You might simply sit quietly and say in your mind the thing you wish you had said while there was still time. None of this undoes the past, but it can change how the past sits with you now. It's never too late to say what you should have said. Even now, even after everything. And there's another side to this too. Maybe you're not only the one who owes an apology. Maybe you're also someone who's been waiting for one. Holding on to a hurt from someone you love, wondering if they even remember what happened, wondering if it mattered to them at all. If that's you, here's something gentle to consider as well. You don't have to wait for the apology to arrive before you start setting the weight down. Sometimes forgiving someone, quietly in your own heart, happens before they ever say the words. And sometimes that's the only way it happens at all. Either way, whether you're the one who needs to say it or the one who's been waiting to hear it, the path forward looks surprisingly similar. A little honesty, a little courage, and a willingness to let an old moment finally be just that. Old. Not gone exactly, but no longer in charge of how you feel today. Sammy Davis Jr. spent his life proving himself to audiences who doubted him. Audiences in rooms that, in many cases, hadn't wanted him there at all. He won that fight again and again, with talent and grace and an unstoppable will to be seen. But the thing he wished he'd done differently had nothing to do with any audience. It was a few words to one person that never got said in time. If you're watching this tonight, and someone's name has come to mind, maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe that's the apology that's been waiting, quietly, for you to be ready. So take a slow breath, slowly, gently, the way you would before saying something important. And maybe, this week, say what you've been meaning to say, while there's still time to. And if no name came to mind tonight, that's all right too. Maybe tonight is simply about remembering that it's possible, that the door is rarely as closed as it feels, and that whenever you're ready, gently, in your own time, it's still there, quietly waiting to be opened.